God bless everybody. Today is March 8th, 2017. I want to go way back and share a dream that I had in 2015. It was August 23rd, and in this dream there was this project, and its code name was Mayfair. And what it was a vehicle. It kind of looked like a tank with a giant camera on it, and it was riding through a neighborhood, and that's what it would do, ride up and down the neighborhoods. And it was just surveillance and this kind of threatening. It just represented just kind of oppression and surveillance. And riding on it were the children of privileged people. And they were riding on it, like waving at people. And they were doing this kind of the way that, say, a senator would send his sons and nephews and off to NASA in order to try on a spacesuit, just because he had access to stuff like that. So the kids wanted to ride on the thing, and the privileged elite children would be allowed to ride on this thing. And the thing was just sort of to go up and down the neighborhoods, threatening, just its presence was threatening. I believe it probably had a military component to it, but it was mainly just like, what is this big old thing? What is this thing? It looks like a tank, and it's watching everybody. So there was that, and the code name for it was Mayfair. And after that, I had a vision of these soldiers, and I'll just read it. Soldiers were long, strong, and large, strong, and fit. And they were in fatigues. They had on brown-colored helmet masks, and the masks were like face cages. And they were very heavily fortified. They were marching like ants in every way except for size. They were in tight rows, moving forward like machines, moving like tanks, rolling, stopping for nothing, moving forward. They were so close to one another, they were more like marching on each other than with each other. It will remind you of checkers stacked. They moved like an organism rather than individuals. The soldiers were all I could see in my vision, as far as you can see. So they were just marching so closely and in such synchronization that they seemed like checkers stacked. And I called that page Martial Law. And mostly I just want to make this video to just kind of just remind that, martial law is coming. We are not only in the last days, that we are in the end of days. We are, this is the capstone of time, and this is it. And so, it is time for the last of the events of the Bible to be fulfilled. And we know that it culminates right before the Lord's return with a government that the Bible calls the beast, which is a world state, world government of total power and control, total unchallenged power of a supernatural nature that controls not only all political power, all resources, but it also controls religion, in causing everyone to worship this beast. And it also has all economic power, because it can make and cause that anybody who does not become a part of this system, pledge their allegiance to this system, and be marked in their forehead or in their hand with the name or the number of the beast, then these people will not be able to participate in the economy of the world. They won't be able to buy or sell anything. Somehow they'll be shut out of the economic and monetary system. So we know from the Bible that that's coming, and we are, we're that generation that's going through this. So what has to take place in order for there to be a world government is the dissolving of what we know now as countries and nations. And that is going to be done by martial law. It's going to be done by force. And first of all, it's going to be done by deception. And then finally all sewed up with martial law. The way that they're going to get us to let go of our of the attitudes that we have, how we think of being free, being independent, being able to seek your own happiness. There's a mindset that they have to get rid of, because there were, revolutionary thoughts that were all put in our head that we ought to be free and all those things. And then, so governments had to have those kind of characteristics in order to rule over people. People wouldn't submit themselves to a knowing tyranny. They're not going to knowingly submit to tyranny, which is what this system in the Bible is described as. It's total tyranny. So they have to come through the back door in order to bring this about. But you take America, for example, and, we have these concepts that we have rights and that we have freedoms and liberties, and a man can go where he wants and do what he wants, so long as he does not interfere with another person. We have all these ideas in our head. All this stuff is going to be out the window when the totalitarian government comes, because under a mindset like that, a person would be able to say, no, I don't want to take your mark on my forehead. I want to just go live in the vast, empty expanse of Montana and have a farm and not participate in your thing. But that's not going to work for them, because the devil wants the entire world to worship him. And for whatever his reasons are, he's not going to settle for anything less than that. And he controls a lot of people. And those are, the Bible calls them his children. And those children are motivated by money. He promises them money and power. And even long life and security and peace. He'll promise them anything, but he won't ever deliver. So those people that trust in the devil, they go along with his plans and schemes in the form of their political system and their economies. So in order for this to work, People have to have no other options. And if they let you go off and be free and live in Utah, Montana, Oklahoma, wherever you think you can set up, if they let that happen, then everyone will choose that option, because no one wants to live under a totalitarian state. No one wants to be a slave to other people or be told what to do, how to do it, and when to do it. So in order to accomplish this, people have to have no other options. They have to block off all other options. They have to set it all up where you have no choice but to go along with them. Okay. Part of accomplishing that was to have everyone in the whole world gathered into cities. And to take all the rest of the lands and claim them as like government territories. So, one way that this has been put forth is something called Agenda 21. Now, I looked into Agenda 21 because it was spoken to me one morning or one day, maybe a month ago, maybe a little longer. But I looked into it. What is this? And Agenda 21, I forget how many pages. This is hundreds of pages in a big, thick book. And these people met in Rio, I think it was, in 1991 or 2. And they got together and they came up with this plan in order to accomplish all of this. So what the elements of Agenda 21, it's going to be the buzzword, the main buzzword that you'll hear about Agenda 21 is sustainable development and all this green stuff. You know, I have a shower curtain in the bathroom, and it has on it some language about how it was green friendly, earth friendly, or some stuff like that. So, as you know, back in 1991, you didn't hear talk like that. You had begun to kind of hear stuff like that. You know, the energy crisis and fossil fuels. You started hearing talk like that. But it wasn't everywhere and pervasive the way it is now. So then Al Gore comes along, whatever year that was, you know, and he comes along talking about climate change. Now all of a sudden you hear this new thing, global warming. You hear all these things, and what they were building up to is what we have today. They were building the mindsets of people to be willing to accept these concepts of sustainable development, which will make you have things like a small carbon footprint, to make you willing to live your life within a few square blocks, really. And to turn you into some sort of efficiency monster. They are subordinating man to the earth. And God told man to subdue the earth. And the devil is turning everything that God said for us to do on its head. And that just reminds me of something this morning. I want to find it. When I woke up, this is what it said. The upside down. And that was a way of referring to the world. Instead of saying the world, they referred to it as the upside down. Say, well, I have to go out into the upside down. And it was talking about the world and its totality of backwardness and Antichrist. This is Antichrist. The world is the upside down. And it's, I guess if you're of a certain age and you're quote unquote awake, you see the upside down in a very shocking way. It is breathtaking how things are so crazy changed. And the older you are able to see the contrast between what was and what is. But there are some people that are like that frog boiling in a pot, where they haven't even taken time to notice how much trouble we're in. So anyway, the world was referred to as the upside down. So Agenda 21, they are getting people used to the idea of this, you want your small carbon footprint, and they are having the people be subordinate to the earth instead of the man subduing the earth as we are supposed to. The earth was created for us to live in, for us to use it. Trees don't have a life as such where we can't cut down a tree and make a boat out of it or burn it for wood, burn it for warmth. And I want to tell you that these same hypocrites that are trying to get you to live in a tiny house, literally a tiny house, like a shed, and be proud of yourself that you ride a bike and that you're a vegan and that you wouldn't eat anything with a face and you wouldn't have a leather belt when God killed animals and made Adam and Eve clothes to cover their nakedness. So who did God intend to have preeminence in the earth? Mankind. Mankind also has a soul to lose. Plants and trees and cats and dogs do not have a soul that they're going to lose. So we are to subdue the earth and survive. So anyway, talking about Agenda 21, and they're turning you into this economical package. And what I mean is, like, they want you to exist like breathing as little air as possible. They want you to be conscious of just turning everything into a number crunch, as if you can take human beings and crunch them like numbers. That's one of the reasons why God was so angry with King David. King David was punished severely when he took a census of the people. He took a census of the men that would be able to fight, and it made God very angry, because we are never to be reduced to numbers as people. But that's what they're turning us into. We're in the great data crunch, and you've just become data. That's why they can go into your job and decide that they do some study, some efficiency study, and their whole profession's based on this, of people who go in and do these efficiency studies. And what they do is decide what's the least amount of people that can do this job. Not the quality of life involved with the people who are doing this job. Because one person can probably keep 20 children alive. Like, you put me in a room with 20 babies, and I could feed them all and diaper them all and give them, food and water and keep them from killing themselves or whatever. But will I be able to nurture 20 human babies? No. Will I be able to keep them alive and feed them and all that stuff and let them learn how to walk and sit up and talk and socialize and bond to human beings and to each other? No, I won't be able to do any of that. All I will simply be able to do is feed them and present them alive. So that's what's happening to people's jobs. Why you hate your job more and more and more and more down through the years? Because it's become a matter of a word that you'll hear: productivity. And they try to quantify those things. They want to try to turn those into numbers and measurable figures. And nothing could be less applicable to a human being than being turned into a number. Nothing at all. It's more about, do you enjoy your job? Are your needs being met? And that is best controlled on a small scale. When you have people from way up here sending down edicts about how much they want done and when they want it done, and it's just all about the shareholders and being able to squeeze out another 100,000 here and 100,000 there, and it comes based on the quality of the lives of those people who work there. And the only way that these sort of totalitarian tactics work is when the people don't have other choices. People can't rebel against it because it's the only option going. So that's what Agenda 21 was about getting this in place in a gradual, subtle way, so that people would not reject it, so that people would go along with it, and basically they could be successful at it. Like George Bush said, we have a real chance at this new world order. We have a real chance at it. And that was in 2001. And like I said, I believe that the Agenda 21, the meeting in Rio, was in 91. I'm just going to find out exactly. Okay. It was in 1992. Just read you a little bit about it, just off of, it says Agenda 21. Listen to these words. Listen to this. It is a non-binding voluntarily implemented action plan of the United Nations with regard to sustainable development. It is a product of the Earth Summit. Remember, we're to subdue the earth, not to become subordinate to the earth. The UN Conference on Environment and Development held in Rio de Janeiro, Brazil in 1992. It is an action agenda for the UN. This was signed by George Bush Sr., by the way. This is an action agenda. They made an agenda and they acted on it for the UN, other multilateral organizations. And, whenever you hear that crap about multilateral and bipartisan and all that stuff, all that is just to create in your mind the impression that this has been consented to by your representatives. It's both sides of the fence, not even letting you know that both sides of the fence are bought and paid for. So it doesn't matter that so-called all sides agree on it, because there's only one side. And that's self-explanatory. If you need that all explained to you, then you're on the wrong channel. And individual governments around the world that can be executed, these agendas can be executed at the local, national, and global levels. The 21 in Agenda 21 refers to the 21st century. It has been affirmed and had a few modifications at subsequent UN conferences. Okay, like I said, it's this huge book, and it lays out all these plans that they're going to do. And believe it or not, it includes school, things that involve the schools, everything. And mostly the way it plays out in schools, you'll see, is just in the form of brainwashing and indoctrination. I remember children that I had contact with coming home from school talking about recycling and reusing things and all that stuff. Now, if they were serious about recycling and waste and all that stuff, the consumers are not the ones who design these packages. They're not the ones who have all this marketing. Like, if you ever bought a new phone, one of these designer fancy phones, and it comes with all this stuff, all this fancy packaging, this big old box, and then just to bring out this little thing. Now, there are ways that you could protect that thing without so-called wasting all those resources. So the consumer is not doing that. They're only taking what is manufactured. So why is this being implemented at the personal level when these same multinational corporations that make up the government are the ones that are wasting all the resources? I have never went anywhere and cut down a tree. Never. I don't make paper. I don't throw the waste products of making paper into your local drinking fountains, your drinking table, your water table. I'm not the one who does that. The same multinational corporations that have captured our governmental bodies are the ones who do this. So what does that tell you? They have absolutely no concern for the environment. None whatsoever. It sounds good. That's why they're doing it. It's plausible. It makes sense. It is it's sort of the straw man that is, they're doing this and saying, this is the reason why we have to take away your rights. This is the reason why we have to restrict your movement. This is the reason why you have to become more economical, why you have to let us turn you into a number, because we're wasting resources. This is the reason why you have to give up your freedoms and come and live in the city, because you'll use less resources if you live in a city. So this is their logic. You take 50 families. You put them in a neighborhood with single family homes. And each of those single family homes has, we'll say, how much would you need? Maybe 10 acres, maybe more. You probably need more, 20 acres. I don't know. You need a place for mom to grow a garden. My grandmother had a garden. And she did not work. Her husband worked. They ate daily the things out of that garden. So when I can think back to being over her house and eating meals at her house, I was very young. She died when I was probably 6 or 7. So I ate things that were grown out of her garden. And they didn't have a big yard, but they lived in a 2-family home, side by side with other relatives. They raised 10 children. And if I'm remembering right, this place probably had 2 bedrooms. I will have to ask my dad, but I'm pretty sure, from what I remember, this place, especially going back there as an older young person, I was like, man, this place did not seem this small when we were there. So anyway, and the yard was just a sliver of a yard, and the backyard, and the whole backyard, all the green space of the backyard, which wasn't much, was her garden. And they just made it work like that. I remember walking to the Goodwill with her. She bought me a toy out of it. I was happy to get it. It was simple. Life was simpler. Okay, so but to really, really be self-sufficient, you need more than just that small area. So I know people who have goats. So you might want a couple of goats, have goat milk, make cheese, have some chickens, have eggs. Might want to eat some chicken. Maybe you have a pond and you can fish out of it. So people need a lot of space in order to be independent, in order to be free and self-sustaining. So what they'll do is tell you that you're wasting resources being independent. And you need to instead of giving those 50 families, each of them, say maybe the 20 acres that they would need to be self-sufficient, they would say, you guys can be more efficient if you come and live in this high rise. And we have more economical ways to provide food for you. We can have this one farmer who can produce, I'm just throwing out wild numbers, 70,000 pounds of food per head every year, where you're inefficient and you can only produce 5,000 pounds of food per person. So you guys are being wasteful, and you're wasting the earth's resources, and you're taking up too much land, and you're doing all this stuff, and you need to come and live in the city in these high-rise condos and not have a car and live within walking distance of your job, of your school, of the grocery store that you shop at, and of all your recreational activities, so that all you really need is a bike. And then for other things that you just can't do in that way, we have these awesome systems of public transportation. And that way, when you spread out the energy use over lots and lots of people, you're having a smaller impact on the environment. So if you take a city, they would say the way that we're living in these high rises, these stackable houses, and no one has cars and you can walk everywhere, they would say that is sustainable. We can continue for many, many generations this way. But we can't continue to waste resources. First of all, like I said, it's all a big load of malarkey. If you give people land, then they have not only is it sustainable, but they are able to be independent and sustain themselves. Guess who they don't need? You. Instead of seeing children as another mouth to feed and having things like China, where they had the 2 children per family laws, and they would encourage abortions, use the tax codes to punish people who had more than 1 child, had more than 2 children, all that stuff. Instead of seeing children as a burden and as a drain on the society the way China did, we see children the way the Lord sees them. These children are a blessing. They're inheritance from the Lord. And the Bible says, blessed is the man whose quiver is full of them. And a quiver, if you ever seen like how they had Indians, archers, and they had like the little basket on their back that had their arrows in it. So the more arrows you had, the better. So you have this farm, you have these people who sustain themselves. They're self-sufficient. Who cares about being efficient? Let them decide what is efficient, because they have their own priorities. Your priority is as fast as possible and as cheap as possible and as much for me and as little for them as possible. That's what the agenda is for these corporations that control our world. They are all about numbers and productivity. How fast can it get done? How quick can it get done? And they care not about the quality of your life and the ability for you to enjoy your life and be self-determinant. That is the opposite of what they want. They want you to be a workforce to make them rich. So Agenda 21, it under the guise of the Earth agenda, they are saying that, people are destroying the earth and we need to corral people in cities and we need to preserve areas of no development. So they're going to declare vast empty areas where, like, you kind of see it now, how they have like the wildlife preserves, nature preserves, places that are zoned where no one can live, but they're going to do that on a larger scale. And the only purpose of that, they, like I said, they don't care anything about the earth. If they cared anything about the earth, they would stop burning holes in the ozone layer with HAARP. They don't care about the earth. All they want to do is gather you into the city, because then you'll be easier to chip and control. That's as far as their care for the earth goes. Trust me. Okay. So, anyway, I think it's called UNESCO, and it's also a provision inside Agenda 21, and that's about schools. And, educating kids in these concepts of sustainable development and how people are wasteful and all that stuff. So they're out driving people off of small farms, destroying their wells. This was done in the Bible as well. There were people that were trying to run them off the land, and what they would do, they would stop their wells up. So that's an old trick. People can't live without water. California, they divert the people's water, all that. So this is Agenda 21, kind of in a nutshell. So just another piece of the puzzle. Get people to feel subservient to the earth rather than have the God-given commandment to dominate the earth. Not to destroy the earth, because in the book of Revelations it says part of what God's going to do with his wrath is destroy the people who are destroying the earth. Not to destroy the earth, because if you had 20 acres of land, would you pour salt on your soil? Would you go and get petroleum oil and pump it into your well? No, you're not going to do that. Big corporations that don't have to live in an area, those are the ones that destroy everything. People on the local level and on the small scale, we take care of our own. Which is why the farther and farther and farther government get away from the core of the people, they get away from the interest of the people, and they get away from the taking care of our humanness, the pursuit of happiness. So I don't know where that meandered off to, but I want to read one scripture from the 2nd chapter of Joel that kind of ties back into the dream that I had and what I was saying about us being the last generation. In order for this beast to come about, they have to get you to stop thinking of yourself as a person of the city and the county and the state and the nation that you live in. And they have to get you thinking like a global person, try to make you feel responsible for the whole earth to the point where you agree with their phony agenda that the earth is being destroyed and you personally are doing it because, they are selling bags to you in big boxes and made out of things that won't biodegrade. Did you develop polyurethane or any of those things that just sit in landfills? No, you didn't. So they make you feel personally responsible for the earth to the point where you're willing to give up your car, your house, your land, and go and live in a box on a block and trust them to bring you food. and they're going to bring the food until they have total control, and then they're going to begin to do what they want. And all this time, they're just going to be telling you what all totalitarian states tell their people through propaganda. Is they cut them off from real information, and then they tell them that you're so much better off than the rest of the world. The people that were in East Germany that was under communism, they were told things about the West that the people were starving and life was so horrible there. And, you wait in long lines for bread, and, your housing is not what you would like. You're discontent with a lot of things. But our economic system, this is the best it could be. This is the best way that life is, and you guys have it so much better than any place else. This is the best of all worlds. No, that's what they say about democracy or our country now. Oh, it's not perfect, but look at the rest of the world. It's going to be that same old song and dance. But the good news is, as all these things begin to happen, we know that the coming of the Lord is nearer and nearer and nearer. We know that the thing that all these things signal is that the Lord is coming. And these things would normally just be a grief to even know. But we have to know that these things are coming. One, so you can prepare yourself, know what's up. And also so you can take heart and know that when you see all these things begin to happen, the coming of the Lord is near. Look up, rejoice, be of good cheer. This is from Joel chapter 2. Blow ye the trumpet in Zion, and sound an alarm in my holy mountain. Let all the inhabitants of the land tremble, for the day of the Lord cometh, for it is nigh at hand. A day of darkness and of gloominess, a day of clouds and of thick darkness. As the morning spread upon the mountains, a great people, a strong. There hath not been ever the like, neither shall be any more after it, even to the years of many generations. A fire devoureth before them, and behind them a flame burneth. The land is as the Garden of Eden before them, and behind them a desolate wilderness. Yea, and nothing shall escape. So you get the picture. It's kind of like a lawnmower. The grass is tall and thick before, but when after the lawnmower goes off, there's just stubble behind. So that's how these people are going to come. The appearance of them is as the appearance of horses, and as horsemen so shall they run. Like the noise of chariots on the top of mountains shall they leap. Like the noise of a flame of fire that devoureth the stubble, as a strong people set in battle array. And I chose this scripture because, one, it's talking about what happens right before the coming of the Lord. It says the coming is for it's nigh at hand. And also because it's of that vision that I saw. It reminds me of that, where these soldiers were lined up like stacks. And as far as the eye could see, there was just soldier marching. And it says, and nothing shall escape them. The appearance of them is as the appearance of horses. And remember that. And as horsemen, so shall they run. Remember that. Like the noise of chariots on the tops of mountains, they shall leap. Like the noise of a flame of a fire that devoureth the stubble, as a strong people set in battle array. Before their face the people shall be much pained. All faces shall gather blackness. They shall run like mighty men. They shall climb the walls like men of war. And they shall march every one on his way and they shall not break their ranks. It's also a perfect description of what I saw. Neither shall one thrust another. They shall walk every one in his path, and when they fall upon the sword, they shall not be wounded. So this is like an invincible army. They shall run to and fro in the city. They shall run upon the wall. They shall climb upon the houses. They shall enter in at the windows like a thief. The earth shall quake before them. The heavens shall tremble. The sun and the moon shall be dark, and the stars shall withdraw their shining. So again, whenever you hear that the earthquake, the moon, and the sun be dark, and the stars withdraw their shining or fall from the sky or refuse to give their light, when you hear all of those things, this is what happens right before the coming of the Lord, and it's right out of the book of Revelation. I also want to bring your attention back to verse 4. The appearance of them is as the appearance of horses, and as horsemen so shall they run. Like the noise of chariots upon the tops of mountains shall they leap, like the noise of a flame of fire that devoureth the stubble, as a strong people set in battle array. Then I'm going to go to Revelation chapter 9, verses 12 through 19. So this is all during that same period, because this is between the 6th and the 7th trumpet, which is the timing of the coming of the Lord. He comes right at the clipping end of the 6th trumpet, the end of the events that unfold after the sounding of the 6th trumpet, and right at the 7th trump the Lord comes. So right in between those two events, the 6th and the 7th trumpet. So Revelation chapter 9, verse 12 says this: one woe is past, and behold, there come 2 woes more hereafter. And the 6th angel sounded, and I heard a voice from the 4 horns of the golden altar which is before God, saying to the 6th angel which had the trumpet, loose the 4 angels which are bound in the great river Euphrates. And the 4 angels were loosed, which were prepared for an hour and a day and a month and a year, for to slay the 3rd part of men. And the number of the army of the horsemen were 200,000. And I heard the number of them, and thus I saw the horses in the vision, and them that sat on them, having breastplates of fire and of jacinth and brimstone, and the heads of the horses were as the heads of lions, and out of their mouths issued fire and smoke and brimstone. And by these was the 3rd part of men killed, by the fire and by the smoke and by the brimstone, which issued out of their mouths. For their power is in their mouth and in their tails. For their tails were like unto serpents, and had heads, and with them they do hurt. So go back to Joel chapter 2. It says, chapter 2, verse 3. Let's talk about the end. A fire devoureth before them, and behind them a flame burneth. The land is as the Garden of Eden before them, and behind them a desolate wilderness. Yea, and nothing shall escape them. The appearance of them is as the appearance of horses, and as horsemen so shall they run. Like the noise of chariots on the tops of mountains, they shall leap like the noise of a flame of fire that devoureth the stubble, as a strong people set in battle array. Okay, that, because this chapter is also a telling of the end of the story of Revelation, the coming of the Lord, and the things that are going to be happening. That's what that is, because it starts with that, and it also goes into how the earthquake and the earthquake and the sun and the moon and the stars, all that stuff that happens right before the Lord comes. So give it a read. Joel chapter 2 is absolutely about the day of the Lord. And so is Revelation chapter 9. Okay. And by these was the third part of men killed by the fire and by the smoke and by the brimstone which issued out of their mouths. So for people who want to say, so if you go to Joel, it's making it clear that what Joel was seeing was actual armies. But then people want to say that that we're going to see creatures that were serpents and locusts and all that stuff. But he said they were like unto serpents. And then earlier in chapter 9, he said, like unto locusts prepared unto battle. Okay? So these are going to be the armies of the kings of the earth. Just like the beast is not an animal, the beast is a government. The beast is a government. We're all familiar with governments. We have one. Okay, before I let you go, I want to read what I heard the other day. I think there was, oh man, I don't know where I can find that at. I think this is it. Is this it? Give me 1 second. If I could pause this for you, I would, but if I pause it, that's going to be the end. Here it is. So, this is what I heard. Okay, this was on 2/19 of this year, 2017. I heard total inferno. 1/3 of people. And a lot of stuff about Trump, and it was all bad. And this is what Revelation chapter 9 verse 18 says. By these three was the third part of men killed by fire and by smoke and by brimstone, which issued out of their mouths. And this is the army of horsemen. And then you hear in Joel, this army of horsemen is it is described as people. It says in verse 2 of chapter 2 in Joel, it says, a day of darkness and of gloominess, a day of clouds and of thick darkness, as the morning spread upon the mountains, a great people and a strong, there hath not been ever the like, neither shall be any more after it, even to the years of many generations. So, what is symbolic and what is literal from the book of Revelation is being revealed to us as it comes. So, and that's another part of Agenda 21. And the agenda overall of the elite, which is to reduce the population of the earth. Like, drastically, because they really feel like they don't want to share the world's resources with you, because each person needs to live comfortably so much space, which will keep them from having vast, huge estates with the pesky people. So You kill the people, leave just enough people to be servants and stuff. So I don't know if, man, I don't know how I would ever find that dream. But I had a dream a couple years ago, probably like in 2015 somewhere, where they were talking about killing a whole bunch of people. And what they were saying, they were going to leave alive. Their goal was to leave alive 5% of like the regular people. And they were going to be selective about who was going to be the 5%. Not them, not the elite. The elite, they so-called going to leave them preserved. But of the rest of the people who they're going to choose to be their servants, they're going to only take 5% of them and leave them alive to serve them. And in the dream it said, you know, they're going to, of your sons and daughters, they're going to leave 5%. And it's just going to be their servants. And if you don't think that you can take a person and give them a mentality to not rise up, to be subservient, to accept their reality, look around you. Because that's what we all have been raised to do. That's why they want to get in schools and indoctrinate the children. They are not concerned with educating your children, making your children smart. Despite how they throw around that word critical thinking, they are teaching them to do everything but critical think. The only thing they want them critical of is your values and God. So, long enough. God bless.